All right, good evening and welcome, folks, to this week's edition of Beyond the Headlines. I'm Gordon Joseph, your host for tonight, and I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Mr. I like to call them Honorable, Mr. the Honorable Kwame Hippolyte. He is a man of sports and he wears many hats. Tonight we'll be looking at Grenada's preparation for next year's Carifta Games, but in addition to that, we will be talking sports and athletics generally. So, Mr. Hippolyte, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good night, and thank you for having us.
And how are you this evening?
Good. I'm pretty good.
I thought you were going to say exhausted, but no, that doesn't work for you. You keep going and going and going. Energize and bunny. All right. Okay, before we delve into Carifta 2024, Grenada has been selected to host it, and this is going to be the third time for Grenada's hosting of Carifta Games. But I want to sort of, have a preamble as to athletics and sports in general, and you're very au fait with that field because you're actually the public relations officer for the Grenada Athletics Association, and you're involved in sports generally. You're a true sportsman. Let's look at our athletes, our current cadre of athletes that we have representing us. What is your take on their performance, the recent performance in the just concluded World Champs and so forth?
Well, I think the athletes who represented us at the World Champs gave an excellent account of themselves, returning with a bronze medal. Although we expected and we really were looking forward to more medals at the Games. I think Lyndon's medal in itself is like a gold medal to us. If we want to understand the background and where Lyndon came from, what he'd have endured over the years, and just having recovered from illness and injury, his medal is one that, in my opinion, is like a gold medal. All right.
As a matter of fact, he was treated that way. When you look at the celebrations when he won, he was treated as though it was a gold medal.
Well, definitely, because many persons understood and knew Lyndon's background and the genesis of where this medal is coming from. And even when we look at the side of Kirani's performance, that in itself, to me, was a medal performance, though he did not get the physical medal at the end of the day. And Kiran, at his age, still competing when many of the other athletes who, from his era, his early era in his professional career, they're no longer competing.
I'm not even hearing about Lashan Merritt anymore.
Exactly. And remembered Kirani's performance with Lashan Merritt when he won his medal then. One would be amazed that he's still performing and he's still able to be competitive with the guys who is younger, pretty much younger than him. Anderson, again, on top of his, though he did not make the finals, again he was able to go there and keep Grenada's flag flying on the international scene. Him also battling the injuries and having a difficult season as he did, says something about the sort of individual he is in terms of wanting to go out there and still represent his country. And Hali Azad, the lone female among the bunch. I mean, it's the team composition speaks to the level at which our sport is at, also in terms of the male-female ratio, with one female having that opportunity to compete at the World Champs, and she herself gave a good account of herself, trying to continue and get into the professional side of things. I think all that would augur well for her in terms of a motivating factor for her.
I would want us to come back to zero in on Kirani's performance even at this age. But before we go there, I want to look at our crop of athletes in terms of the number of athletes we have representing us at professional and semi-professional meets. Are you, from where you sit, are you concerned as to Grenada's keeping prominent in terms of international representation and so forth? I'm wondering, is there another Kirani brewing somewhere? Is there another Hazel and Regis brewing somewhere? Is from your part of the vineyard, what are you seeing?
I think at all levels of the sport present in Grenada, we have a good cadre of athletes at all levels. At the grassroots level, we look at a number of the young athletes who's coming up. I think we have a lot of athletes there, a lot of the talent, not just a lot of athletes, but the talent that we have at that in that grassroots level is a lot, and we have many of our clubs nurturing that talent at present. So much so that in the last 2 to 3 years, we saw the emergence of a number of track and field clubs. Even if we step ahead and just up to that in the youth category, we have a lot of athletes there also, and the quality is also improving. I think even at the junior level, the under 17 and the under 20 category, that phase, we have a lot of athletes there who, if we look at their performance last year at during the national champs and so forth, a number of the young men there, for example, are not running sub 22 comfortably. We had last year over in one 200-meter race, you had 6 to 7 guys running sub 22. So that in itself says something about the depth and the quality within that in that age group category. And if we go just up to that, we see a number of young men, especially dropping times in the 400 meters, a number of them running running the 47s and so forth. So that in itself says something. I think what we have to do now as a country is to ensure that we have all systems in place to support these athletes, to ensure that they are able to take it to the next level. And when we speak about the support here, we're talking about support in terms of the level of coaching that they receive, support in terms of management of injuries and injury management and so forth, nutrition, being able to they're able to access the advice and what the information that is necessary. So there are a number of things that we have to put in place. Also, being able to have systems in place to have them in terms of moving from one level to the other. Ensuring that our facilities, we have the best equipment and so forth in place to ensure that our athletes, and I think that is where the challenge would come in. As a small island developing state, having these things in place in order to be competitive with countries such as Jamaica and so forth, who have more resources and they are able to have these in addition to ensure that the athletes are well taken care of.
But when we look at it from a per capita basis, all right, we talk about Jamaica. Jamaica's population is much more than ours, and obviously they have more resources. But for a little state as Grenada, as you say, a small island developing state, do you think enough emphasis is placed on, that aspect of our culture, if you want to refer to it that way, harnessing the best talents that we have? I am looking at it from the perspective that the marketing and PR that our athletes give us, it's invaluable. All right. I mean, even before Kirani, we had Alan Francic and Hazel and so forth. But people really gravitated towards Grenada. People wanted to know where Kirani came from. All right. So I'm looking at the level of marketing that these guys and gals gave Grenada. And are you satisfied that enough energies and resources are placed to assist them to optimum?
I think more can be done in terms of providing this sort of support, and an athlete coming out of high school in Grenada, whether that athlete attends school in the United States or so forth, in order to continue, and making that transition from school to semi-professional, professional level is where the challenge would come in. So I think more can be done. However, when we sit and we look at our situation, not making an excuse, but in terms of the sort of or the revenues or revenue earning sectors and so forth in Grenada, and how much we can really put into getting athletes the kind of support that the athletes need is a lot. All right, and if, for example, I know one time we did an analysis of how to getting an athlete to the Olympics, and you could run into the $500,000 and even more. Per athletes. So it is that sort of support, because I mean, you're asking an athlete to put out on a daily basis to concentrate on training, right? As opposed to some of the situations that we have when an athlete have to go to work, right? Because they have to eat, they have to live, and to provide for them, for their families, go to work, and then to come after 4 o'clock in the afternoon to train. Though we are getting to the point of having facilities lit to facilitate that, but you are talking about expanding from 8 to 4 and then coming to train in the evening, and then to put out is a lot. So I think more can be done, but I mean, I'm going to strike a balance in terms of our economic situation. How much athletes can we really truly support in terms of getting there? And that is where there's a need to ensure that we have collaboration with the government, the private sector, and many other entities, in order to ensure that we can assist as many athletes as possible to move from the secondary, high school, college level to being a professional athlete.
Which brings back a conversation that I had a couple of weeks back with Dexter Mitchell in terms of having that sports policy in place.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How significant you think that sports policy would be in terms of addressing these maladies, if you want to refer to them? Because I mean, hearing you speak, hearing other sporting enthusiasts speak, all right, it gives me the impression that if our athletes are exposed equally to the resources that their competitors have, like from other countries, other territories, we can get better performances from them. Am I safe in saying that?
Yeah, I think it's quite safe to say so. Let's take, for instance, Lyndon. Lyndon, who in the year had some challenges with his health. That in itself took quite a sum. He initially had a previous injury from the previous season that needed to be managed, and also Lyndon also have to pay his coaches and so forth, and to get the sort of help that is needed. Had he not have that level of support in order to pay and access some of the best therapists, he might have been out of the sport at this time. So taking that comparison to an athlete who's coming out of secondary school, coming out of TAMCC, coming out of the US college, and wanting to continue in the sport, might be injured. I mean, what else can he do? There's no support that is coming in terms of that he can receive. What you find happening is just simply fall out of the sport, right? So unlike in other countries, for example, in Trinidad and Tobago, where they are able to support their athletes through the natural resource of the gas, and the level of support that they receive from that set of things. You hear a number of programs. When you go to meet, you hear the athletes speak of the number of support and programs that is in place for them. Then I'm certain that if we are able to, our athletes are able to have that level of support, not just only financially, but it would allow us to have a number of other systems in place to truly support the athletes. And I'm certain that our athletes would be able to perform even better at the level.
The concern here is not only as it relates to athletics, because listening to other sporting disciplines, even football, I raise that point on so many occasions that we definitely cannot get the players performing at their best when they have to work. And from work, you would see them, like if you go to the club meets, you'd find the game starting late because the majority of the players have to be dropping from a bus and running into the park and changing and so forth. I always go back to the days of when Harry Walker sponsored the SAFL, the St. Andrews Football League, and he brought in professional players. These guys were paid handsomely to play football, and we saw the impact it had on the SAFL at the time. So I don't know what it would take to, if the sports policy will make way for that to, once you are selected as a national athlete in whatever discipline, that you are taken care of, in that your bills are met, you are paid a decent salary to take care of your bills and responsibilities, so that you can concentrate wholly and solely on whatever that discipline is. Because what also happens, it's not only the financial support, but the whole mental set, everything. Do you think the sports policy would cater for that? And along with that, we also hearing now of the Athletes Commission and so forth, all these bodies that are there, the Olympic Committee, and how could they facilitate the conditions to get our athletes and sportsmen and women to be at their A game, with all the support, the financial, the human support, the everything?
Well, it's all of, I have to work in unison. I think the sports policy will assist in allowing that to happen, because it will clearly outline the expectation of each of these organizations. So the Olympic Committee is aware of its role and know the level of the athletes, at what level they would be able to provide that level of support. So athletes who would be identified as potential towards the Olympics Committee would be aware of that. In the same way, what happens to athletes who go out there in terms of and would be representing us, sports policy would be able to identify. So I think the policy would also allow for. We're not guessing. We're not going based on what the government of the day or the person who in a particular position would say, but it would set what is expected, no matter if that individual is, let's say, is at the level of some level in terms of football in comparison to that of an athlete who performs at a regional level. So it allows for some form of uniformity and so forth throughout the years. The policy exists. So I think in that in itself would assist in motivating athletes, knowing that I can be comfortable. I can go there. I'm comfortable in mind that I can contribute to the care of my family, and so that I will be able to concentrate on training, concentrate on performing well, in order to represent Grenada. And it means that, or as administrators, we now have to ensure that all the systems are in place. We are able to provide the level of support that the athletes would need so that they can just concentrate on what they have to do. Right? So we have to, it would also assist in ensuring that we have trained personnel for the varying areas. The sports psychologists or sports administrators will be trained at certain levels, sports managers and so forth. So it will assist. It will assist in ensuring that we have the systems around the athletes who can really bring the sport to another level.
A quick question here. The international bodies that govern the various disciplines, for example, the ICC for cricket and FIFA for soccer, the Olympic Committee for athletics, and so forth, the governing bodies, from your vantage point, do they pump monies into various islands who have athletes participating in the various disciplines? For example, the IOC, do they, disburse funds to small island developing states to help develop their athletic programs and so forth?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, for example, the IOC is for Olympics through the Olympic Committee. They do disburse some level of funds to athletes through a number of programs, right, that the Olympic Committee would have to access in order to support athletes towards varied meets. From the Athletic Association standpoint with World Athletics, they support the Athletic Association in order to ensure that we meet our primary role in Grenada. In the same way, they have a number of additional programs that we are able to apply and access funding to. So, for example, right now we're working with World Athletics in our Grant for Growth project, which allows us to, we're implementing a program where we're trying to document our athletes and have a database for our athletes. So the information on athletes are readily available, and we work in our clubs to ensure that happens. So there are programs that can be accessed. There are funding that can be accessed. What you find happening is that with some of these international bodies, the funding is to a specific role or purpose, right? So we cannot just say we're going to access funds to support an athlete's training. The funding might be directed to specific roles, specific things. So, for example, the Olympic Committee, the IOC, might support athletes towards preparation, towards participation at the Olympic Games, right? So there would be parameters in how the funds can be used and how the funds can be utilized by the local body. Yeah.
Okay. A quick question again. When you look at the exploits of, let's say, Usain Bolt, millions of dollars, what does it take for a Grenadian athlete to achieve that much? What's the difference? I mean, yeah, he is from Jamaica. Yes, he was the world record holder, but the disparity there. Kirani James is a record holder too. He's, I'm not hearing Kirani talking about millions.
And it comes back to the level at which the athlete at, and how much, in terms of sponsors, are willing to pump into that particular individual. We oftentimes compare sports in Grenada to that of in Jamaica, to that of Jamaica. But when you look at the sports in Jamaica, for example, the corporate sector in Jamaica pumps a lot of money into sports. When you look at some of the meets, the number of sponsors, when you look at the sponsors list, there are a number of companies who support. But to compare that, we shouldn't, because the volume of sponsors, the swarm of the businesses in Jamaica is much more than that of in Grenada. So sometimes when you look at Grenada, sometimes as federations, organizations, you would find that we go into the same people, the same companies to support sports because we do not have much. So it all comes back into the corporate sector, how much the corporate sector can. So most of Usain Bolt's finance and so forth might have been generated through his private sponsorship deals that he would have had, minus the fact that he made money, much money, a lot of money out of his winnings as an athlete. But outside of that, he has a lot of sponsors, and that many of athletes have to try to attract in order to make money at the end of the day.
Okay. All right. Now back to the developmental aspect of sports in Grenada. You raised something earlier as it relates to the grassroots and the club structure. Mm-hmm. Are you satisfied with the club structures in Grenada now?
I'm pretty much satisfied. First of all, in the last 2 to 3 years, a lot of people have been coming forward to start clubs. We are also seeing a change in the trend of things in terms of parental support. Right, a lot of parents are now supporting the athletes through their varying clubs. So, mini meets. What we found is that the more parents came to the mini meets to see their athletes and so forth, their son or daughter performing. So that in itself speaks volume. What I would say is that I think in Grenada we have to do some work in terms of the strengthening the club structures. Training people in the varying roles and the expectations of clubs, so that when one person decides that they're no longer able to take on being the president of the club or the coach of the club, that we don't have a break in that structure. But there are people there who can continue to work and sustain the club over a period of time and ensure longevity. So I think that is what we have to work towards now in Grenada, that the present clubs that we have, that we are able to strengthen them and mold them into ensuring that they are able to sustain over a longer period of time.
And whose responsibility is that to ensure the development of the clubs?
It's the association. It's the Grenada Athletic Association is the parent body to do that. It's also the role of the Sports Council, which is to come on board with that through the sports policy and so forth. So it has to be a collaborative effort. But our role as an association is to ensure that we are able to work with the clubs to have a number of people trained in the varying areas. And I know in the past we've have scheduled, we've not gotten to the point of ensuring that it's executed. And coming here, though we have the character and so forth to do, is something that we have to work towards ensuring that we strengthen the club structure, train the general secretaries, train the presidents, train your treasurers, so that they can be the best and that they are able to really and truly service and give true meaning to the sort of support that they would give to the athletes. So the athletes would be able to carry out their role and function and not have to worry about having to provide additional support on the administrative side of things.
And it's important that the club structure is really organized, because the evidence is there. Areas that have good clubs, you see top class athletes coming from there. We have quite a number of top class athletes coming from St. David. We have that club there. We also, I understand, we have a good club structure in Guab on the western side. But how many real functioning clubs do we have?
It's increasing. I don't have the number of it, but I know, for example, yes, you have the one St. David's Trailblazers in St. David's. In recent times in St. George's, you have South City Rising Stars, you have a 473 MVP, you have Finish Line Track Club, you have Velocity Track Club. I mean, and then Fusion, all right? And then in St. Andrew, you have a new one, name eludes me right now, but then you also have the Ace Track Club. So we have a few speed zone in recent time, have kind of gotten dormant, but that eastern southern part of Grenada, we have strong clubs, and what we have to do now, I know for some of the schools in some instances who are members of the Athletic Association, they too would definitely have their role to play. McDonald College, they do a good job in terms of St. Patrick's. So what we have to do is ensure that it's sort of balanced across the island, so that we can really bring forward a number of the talent that we have throughout the island.
All right, folks, this is Beyond the Headlines for today, Monday, the 25th day of September. I'm speaking with Mr. Kwame Hippolyte, the Public Relations Officer for the Grenada Athletic Association, and his involvement in sports in general. We take a commercial break. We'll be back after these messages. Don't you go anywhere.
You heard about the new Softweave bathroom tissue with total hygiene? As hygiene and safety have taken center stage, our bathroom tissue is now manufactured with 3 different technologies to offer the best protection for you and your family. UVC light technology for a safe and effective disinfection process, eliminating 99.9% of microorganisms. Also, production at high temperatures, killing all types of germs and bacteria. And it's pH controlled with delicate fibers to prevent irritation for even sensitive skin. Softweave Total Hygiene Bathroom Tissue, available in supermarkets and shops island-wide. Visit Softweave Caribbean Facebook or Instagram pages for more information.
Ready. A new season of the Grenada debates is coming. Informative, impromptu, bright young minds sparking powerful ideas. The Grenada debates, September 2023. Tune in.
Welcome back, viewers, to Beyond the Headlines, talking sports with the Honorable Kwame Hippolyte. He likes it. You see, he smiles when I say that. Yeah, that's a nice term. All right, we're heading into Carifta. Yes. So how are we going to do this thing? We do the build-up. Intercall and, inter-school sports meet and so forth come first, and then we go head into the Carifta. In terms of intercall games, let's do a post-mortem. Last year, what was it, in your opinion? You can talk about it without stepping into the role of the Principals Association. Just scratch the surface, all right?
Well, Intercall last year was really good with its return to the normal format. It was really good. I think we had some competitive races, excellent times, and even some of the races that did not have excellent times, it was still competitive in both the female division as well as the male. Again, what's coming out of Intercall and the athletic season from last year, we are going to be looking towards selecting athletes that will form part of the pre-selected character team that we are going to be having in training towards the character games, and having worked with the specialized coaches and the best coaches that we have in Grenada to ensure that come next year we are able to field an entire team for the character games. So Intercol was good, and we were happy that they're able to work with us in ensuring that the games is a bit earlier, so that we can ensure that the athletes are well rested after the Intercol games and they are well prepared for competition for the character games. So because of that excellent games that we had last year, we can safely identify a few athletes that would be able to work towards the games.
Being a principal of a secondary school now,
putting me on spot, man.
I'm going there, you know. Well, yeah, the Intercol Games is primarily run by the Principal Association. You're relatively young in that new role, but you're an athletic person. Identifying the talents from the Intercol Games, how difficult a task is this?
Well, let me talk about how we do it first. Before I identify, we have a selection committee. That selection committee is made up of some of our technical minds, as well as some of our coaches, the better coaches that we have. And they are going to look at the performance of the athletes in relation to the previous character's performance. And then they would be able to identify a few people who can walk to. They may not be at the times yet, but they will be able to, if they continue to train and prepare in the best way, then they will be able to get, let's say, into the medal rankings. And that's essentially how we would select. They would select such a group of individuals. Some instances can be very difficult, especially when you have athletes who may not be performing up at that level, because what you find happening is that in selecting, they might gauge the athlete's performance based on, let's say, the 4th place or the bronze medal of the previous character games, and equate that to the athlete's performance last year. So it can be a bit difficult when you don't have athletes who are performing up at that level. It means that our coaches in that area would now have to put out a bit more in terms of ensuring that the athletes get to that level. And also bear in mind the selection standards, the character standards that will be set during that time. So it can be a bit challenging. In some instances, it can be very easy. But also you have to bear in mind that if you have an event where you have a number of athletes who's performing well, right? At the end of the day, you have to come down to the selection meet.
We've spoken quite a lot about the athletes and the athletes and the athletes. In terms of our coaching, all right, throughout the entire system, the Grenada, sporting system, do we have sufficient qualified coaches? And when I say that, I mean coaches who have a scientific approach to dealing with our athletes. Are you satisfied that we have that?
We have. I think we have some of the best in the OECS, and we're talking about at the most senior level. We have the best. We have coaches that are sought after by Caribbean countries. Mr. Albert Joseph, Mr. Wayne Maxwell, Paul Phillip, right? Having these individuals around is important because they would be able to pass on knowledge to the number of our junior coaches that we have. And so even if we step down to that, we still have a number of coaches at the level 1, level 2 strata who have been producing athletes over the years and continue to do so, and do so in a scientific way. That is why they are getting the sort of results. Coach Lee Coffey, Coach Kato, Coach Knight, and so forth at that level. Coach James, some of the first names elude me. We have a number of them who's coaching at that level and scientific. All right, a number of other coaches we have in Grenada. So I think we have the personnel, we have the human resource, but we still have to ensure that the human resource that we have, they continue to update themselves. They continue to update themselves on the most recent research and techniques, strategies and techniques that can be used to ensure that athletes can move from running at one level to our next.
Having said that, are you satisfied now that as a people, as a Grenadian people, our culture is changing with the time? I say this to say that in years gone by, parents, guardians, they didn't want children to get so much into athletics. You know, athletics was seen as a waste of time. All right.
It was the sport or sports in general.
Yeah.
Was for the students who were not performing academically.
As a matter of fact, in school, when I taught in the primary schools, on the timetable they have games.
Games, yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
But now that has changed.
That has changed.
Physical education.
Yeah, that has changed.
So, as a people, are we moving with the trend? I say this to say that maybe if we are as a people where we are at the moment, if we are moving, it would change the whole cycle. Maybe it would even reach to a level where you might even find sponsors wanting to pump monies into it because the returns are there, you know.
We have seen some changes, as mentioned earlier on, in terms of more parental support. We're seeing that. Parents are, even in some instances, more passionate than the athlete. However, as a general public, we're still on this sort of bandwagonist sort of notion. So we heave on the bandwagon when the athlete is succeeding. But are we providing? Are we going to the meets? Are we going to the national champs and so forth when the athletes in their formative years, and give them that sort of support? We need to improve in that area. If we see more improvement in that area, I'm certain that athletes will be wanting to put out more. But we're still in that notion that, we ride the waves when the athletes are out there and they are succeeding and so forth. But we have to do so. We must do so in the athletes' formative years.
Now, in terms of the system, the education, the whole education system, how effective is the system in creating well-rounded athletes? Meaning that your physical performance on the field is matched with your academics. Because some parents, that's their concern. I'm spending a lot of money to send you to school. I need to see some academic achievement. So yes, you can do your athletics or whatever sporting discipline you choose, but I must also be seeing results on the academic side. The system, does it cater for that?
To some extent, and oftentimes you find that it might come down to the particular institution, right, and the policies of the institution. So some institutions might place a lot of emphasis on it, but the others may not. In addition to that, the present academic structure does have some leeway, to allow for that. Now, what you find happening at our school level, a lot of our schools teachers would emphasize that there is a need to marry the two, all right? But we still have the challenge of athletes not wanting to ensure that happens, and would oftentimes give emphasis on one over the other. So at the end of the day, I think it comes down to the individual institution. And sometimes when you look at the approach of the institution in terms of some of sports in relation to academic performance, it leaves a lot to be desired.
Don't you think it should be dealt with at the policy making level, that, you know, it's imperative that athletes have a fair share of the academics as well? And I say that from the backdrop that sometimes I listen to, I got bashed for that on the radio sometime last year, but you listen to athletes who excelled in an event, and in the interview, their speech, you know, it left wanting, you know. So they're good in the events, but when it comes to talk about that event that they just performed so meritorious in, then, you know, giving a good description of what happened there is a problem. So you could see definitely that they're unequally yoked.
Yeah, that happens sometimes, but what I've noticed over the years, it comes down to the individual at the time, and most of our athletes and generally young people in Grenada, they do not, they oftentimes do not articulate themselves, do not talk much, as opposed to, if we, let's say, compare a child of the same age to, let's say, an American student, right, who tend to talk and articulate better. It comes down, I think it comes down to, at the end of the day, to how possibly our English curriculum is to be taught and executed, as opposed to we come and we teach in terms of the subject-verb agreement, but ensuring that there is space for you know, the speaking aspect. But at the end of the day, most of the times, I oftentimes you see athletes shy away from interviews. It's because of the self-confidence and being able to just, once you put the mic in front of them, just speak, because they oftentimes will be worried as to, as one child told me today, you have 1,000 people in front of you, and you're just there worried about what each 1,000 person is thinking about me in terms of what I might be saying and so forth. So sometimes it's that personal block that our children would grow up with. You know, oftentimes parents, you know, at the early age, child, shut your mouth. Yeah. So it's a sort of cultural thing that, you know, that there is that block, and possibly our curriculum, or English curriculum, are not necessarily having the space for that to assist in, you know, breaking that block that created at the early stage.
That ties in nicely with a program I've been having with Matthias Williams on Friday mornings on Classic, you know, education on a whole, you know, getting a child to want to learn, you know, so it's all part of the education system. So the whole education system has to be revamped, really, you know. How do we deal with a child, you know, getting the whole child involved, the spirituality, the academics, the sportings, and so forth. Character, how significant is character to Grenada? And I'm looking at it from a benefits perspective. How does Grenada benefit from, because we know a lot of money has to be expelled to host it, all right? Now, how does Grenada benefit from character games?
I could simply answer that by saying, for example, Jamaica is already indicating that they have one plane chartered to come to the games.
Wow.
Bahamas is going to be saying the same thing, right? throughout the region, the feedback that we are getting from our brothers and sisters or fellow federations is that they intend to come with large teams. Right, so that in itself says a lot. The economic benefit that the country on a whole will benefit from during the few days of the Character Games with the volume of people here. But in addition to that, it will assist Grenada, us, the Federation, in terms of kind of cementing and assisting in developing the sport, the image of the sport in Grenada. We've been working with the team in mind over the past few days, more fans, more participation, more people. And we believe that the Character Games will assist us in achieving that goal and aim. So, in short, it is quite significant to Grenada on the economic side of things, sports tourism, and for us in terms of assisting continuing to building the sport.
Do you think that the level of the Character Games that we will have next year will be one of such that you would find foreign universities and so forth coming to the region and specifically Grenada scouting for talents?
Oh yes, the Character Games every year is oftentimes used by universities to recruit athletes. In Bahamas, you had an increasing number of U.S. colleges at the games, and we believe that we would be able to, we would see such an interest in the games in Grenada. So it is definitely going to be that ground for coaches.
In terms of preparation for hosting the games, what sort of preparations are needed? Will it be centralized in the National Kirani James Athletic Stadium, or will there be events and activities in other facilities around the country?
It will be centralized to the Kirani James Athletic Stadium because the Character Games is a single sport event, track and field. And throughout the Easter weekend in 2024, the best junior athletes in the Caribbean region will be at the games. And that has been identified by World Athletics as one of the better games, the best games at the junior level. So throughout that period of time, we are going to be at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium from the Saturday right on to the Monday. However, leading up to the games, there will definitely be small events throughout the island that will be used to assist and in promoting the Character Games and what it will offer for that period of time.
In terms of readiness of the facility, there was some talk not so long ago that the surface of the athletic stadium had to be replaced and so forth. All that will be part of the preparatory mode. Are you aware, are you on top of things to ensure that when the athletes come here, when they would have left here, they can say, well, yes, Grenada really does have the best track.
Well, government committed to ensuring that the venue, the stadium, the track and so forth is ready for the Character Games. And so we believe that we're confident that at the end of the Character Games, the experience that athletes are going to have this year, it will be one that is memorable.
Okay. So now you've traveled around the region with athletics and sports in general. Making a comparison with our facility, is it on par with that throughout the region?
Yes, we're on par. And when I say we hear government and so forth, when the general repairs and so forth and the stadium is prepared for the games, I think we would be right there with the best facilities, track surface that is within the region. We are confident that the necessary consultation will have been conducted, and that the government is working with the best partners to ensure that we have that surface.
I've spoken with Minister Ron Redhead, and he is very passionate about it. I can see it in his face, I can hear it in his voice, and I know that he is going to do all that is humanly possible from his administration standpoint to ensure that the facility is ready. All right, we ought to take a break. When we come back, I want us to touch a little on upgrading our outer facilities, which I think will foster a sort of holistic development of our sporting fraternity. Folks, this is Beyond the Headlines. I'm speaking with Mr. Kwame Hippolyte, and we're talking Carifta games primarily, but generally we're talking sports. We take a commercial break. We'll be back after these.
When you need someone to help you to your feet, I'll be that beacon to your highest peak. Oh, I'll be right next to you, no, I will never leave. Come on, take my hands, we got everything we need. Cause you can look to me, yes, I can. Whenever you're in need, yes, you can. Just call on me and I'll be on my way. I'll be by your side, never to divide. The light that shines our way. Wherever you road lead, we'll make your dreams come true. Next time, next time, next time, next day,
Nexa Credit Union, with you wherever your road leads.
Do you have muscular pain that no one can find a solution for? Are you tired of taking meds for joint and other pains? Hills and Valley Medicare Center on Grenville Street, St. George is here to help you heal. We will help you map a path to your full recovery. Visit us Monday to Saturday for a consultation with our on-site doctor, physiotherapist, and massage team. You will be glad you did. Our Medicare Center, a proud member of the Hills and Valley group of companies. On the hilltop or in the valley, we are with you wherever life takes you. Hills and Valley Pharmacy. Your health is our business.
Welcome back, viewers, to Beyond the Headlines for today, Monday. Speaking with Mr. Kwame Hippolyte, we're talking sports, primarily Carifta games. This is the time when we open the lines that you can call in to join in on the conversation, share your ideas, make some recommendations, something that would uplift sports in Grenada generally. Could you repeat the number? All right, the number 440-1252, that's the number that you can call to be a part of the program, 440-1252. Before we left off, the development of the outside facilities, how important is that? Well, before we go to that, at the moment, in terms of preparation, what are some of the preparations that have already started in terms of preparing for the Carifta Games?
Well, at present, we have the varying committees formed. and we're working with the regional body NACAC to ensure that all the legal parameters are in place for the games. We had a logo competition. We have come down to a final selection on same, which will be revealed at launch at some point in time before the games. Some of the committees in terms of the areas have commenced implementing some of the areas. For example, accommodation. That's one of the areas that they've been working diligently in terms of ensuring that we are able to lock down rooms.
All right, we'll come back to accommodation. I'm not stopping you, I'm just pausing you. I'm going to unpause you momentarily. We have a caller on the line. Good evening, caller. Welcome to the program.
Hello, good evening.
Welcome.
What's up, Innocent? You good?
Yes, always.
All right, man. Good night, Kwame. All right. So I just have one contribution to make, you know. When it comes to the preparedness of our athletes on an international level, I think that we lacking a bit with the conditioning of our athletes, right? When you look at places like Jamaica and Bahamas, right? Even before the intercollegiate games, right? These people have been having a number of track meets leading up to the intercollegiate games, right? Sometimes the athletes have 5-6 track meets for the season before they go into that level of competition. And what that does is give them a level of conditioning where the athletes, their muscles and everything is in top form because they have been competing at the top level for a period of time. You know, what we saw last year in Carifta, yes, our athletes have raw talent. But when they leave Grenada and they go outside there and they compete with some of these athletes who've been performing at the top level, even at their age, right, we realize that some of the athletes that were performing good in Grenada, when they get outside there, the conditioning comes into question. You know? So in my thing, I would love to see that we have much more track meets leading up to games like Intercol and National Champs and all these kind of things at the club level, where athletes can compete against one another more frequently within the track and field season, right? Not just, we have 1-2, the Western Games, we try to bring back the Whitsuntide and all these kind of things, It's very good to have these games, but at the club level, we need to have the athletes performing, not just training, but performing at a higher level. Every game they get better. Every game they look for a faster timing and all those kind of things.
Thank you very much, caller.
The caller is correct, and but also I think before going to that part of in terms of what the caller said, athletes on the proper training structure is important towards the athlete's development. An athlete must go through, for example, a general preparation phase, specific. It must be done so scientifically, okay? The competitions will assist in augmenting what the athletes are doing at the training level. So over the years, what we've found and what we've done is we've increased. That's what the caller failed to realize. We've increased the number of meets that we have. So as early as October last year, we had a number of mini meets, right? And these mini meets led into we had development meets that led into some mini meets prior to the national champs and intercall that was mentioned. So as an association, we have gone further because essentially we're basically expected to host national champs. But we've gone further to have a number of mini meets, development meets, and mini meets that will benefit the athletes. Now, what needs to happen? The caller mentioned it. We need to have more events, more track and field competition at the club level, and events organized by other bodies. That will provide and fill some of the gaps that might be needed by the athletes. So, for example, we only have one club in Grenada that would host the meet annually. That's the St. David's Trailblazers. So what have to happen, the number of clubs that we have, and it's done in Jamaica, each club have to have their meet. And when the club would host the meets, athletes can look at the meets based on the calendar and decide what the event they're going to do in a particular meet, stay out of a meet based on, the preparations, if they might be injured and so forth. And so they have a variety, they have more choice, and that would assist.
All right, thanks. We have a caller on the line. Caller, good evening, welcome to the program.
Yes, good evening to you, and good evening to you guests. Building on what your last caller indicated, whilst we know we have gifted and talented children and they're performing locally, when they get out there, it's a different kettle of fish. And what is happening here, and I made this observation and passed it on to the Ministry of Sports for quite a number of years, they should be having special diets, not at the home level, but at the school level, so that the athletes can get the right nutrient, because you see, stamina is very, very important in all of this in athletes. And if their body is not strong enough, eventually, although they're doing well here, when they get over there and they have to compete, you see, this red blood is not flowing through the breakdown. And so that's what we have to do. I think we have to find special diet for athletes especially, but for children generally, because we're training every child to be a sports person.
Okay.
So
all right, thank you very much, caller. Kwame?
Yeah, definitely, and it comes back to what I mentioned earlier, ensuring that we have the proper systems and structures in place around the athletes.
So back to the preparations, we were at accommodations.
Right, so for example, accommodation right now, we have to ensure that we are able to cater for all of the athletes who's coming in, and that we have rooms for these athletes. So the accommodation,
and not just the athletes, but
the officials, the spectators that's going to come. So yeah, we have to, our concentration is that of the athletes, and ensuring that the athletes are catered for, the athletes and the international officials that will come. So they're working diligently to ensure that happens. The volunteer side of things, they're working in terms of getting persons who assist and do a very good job at the games, performing at the games.
You mean in terms of
officiating and so forth? Just Saturday, the guys on the technical side of things, they've been having a series of meetings over last few Saturdays to ensure that we have the technology that will be supporting the sport. So, for example, ensuring that we have the starting blocks, they're up and running, ensuring that we have the photo finish cameras and so forth, and whatever technology around. So a number of things have been happening in that area, looking at how the system is going to flow for the meet execution, and that's one of the areas that we're concentrating on now, because at the end of the experience that somebody is going to have at the end of during the games is what would remain in the minds of everyone. Some of the other areas, for example, we're presently looking in terms of the ticketing system that will be used for the games. Already, a number of individuals in the diaspora, they're asking when can they start purchasing tickets, and that's something we're hoping that we're able to provide the public that information in soon time when we have that launching of the games. So a number of areas, we've been working in terms of a number of areas to ensure that the experience that the spectators have at the games, it will be one that is lasting and sort of repositioning and setting character into a new stead. We will be receiving visits from the NACAC, the North America, Central America, and the Caribbean Federation to ensure that we have those systems in place, and we want to ensure that when they come to do those spot checks, that we're ready and that they're close to seeing those systems that will be rolled out.
And do we have that level of expertise on island, or we have to source them from outside?
No, we have more than enough here.
Okay,
we have more than enough. The good thing about the organizing of character this year is that a lot of the systems that we had in the last character games, we continued to utilize them throughout our athletic meets, and so we are activating a number of the areas that need to be activated, and ensuring that whatever system that we have been lacking in the past, that we beef up on it. So it's sort of a comprehensive approach that we're doing in terms of putting in and having in place for the games.
Okay.
Yeah.
Once again, viewers and listeners, you can call in during this segment. The number is 440-1252. We're talking sports in general, but specifically on Carifta with Mr. Kwame Hippolyte, sporting enthusiast, sporting administrator, and everything. So all in all, Kwame, as we're getting ready to wrap up, are you satisfied with the level of preparations thus far? Are we 40% there, 60% there, 90% there? How are we ranked at the moment?
I don't want to necessarily give a rank. What I can safely say is that there is still the opportunity for us to ensure that we have the best games, and in terms of sponsors, there's a need to ensure that the corporate sector can get on with us for the games, and ensuring that the level of games that we want to put on for the Caribbean region, we were able to do so. The Grenada Board of Tourism, they're on board, working with us to ensure that the experience that the visitors will have when they get here is one that is memorable. So government is doing its part of things. The Athletic Federation and the sporting bodies are doing what is expected of them, but we need to ensure that the corporate set of things, that we can really the corporate sector can come on. It's not too late to indicate how you would be able to partner with us in ensuring that the games is really the best, having experienced a number of the Carifta games, that this one is the best in recent times. And bearing in mind that we celebrating our 50th.
Ties in nice, yeah?
Yeah, and that's one of the things we pounced on in the presentation when we bid for the games, that it's falling nicely with our anniversary, our independence anniversary. So it is that sort of things that we are doing presently, and that when we really launch off with it, that we are able to really bring home the games that we want to give off.
Something that I know quite a number of folks would want to know, so I'll ask it for them. The revenues that are derived from that meet, who does it go to?
These revenues go directly back to the athletes, because it's to the Athletic Association. It would in turn allow us to provide more for the athletes, as well as to improve on some of the events that we have, and ensure that the best equipment is purchased and have been there for the athletes to use. So it goes directly back to the athletes through the athletic fraternity.
And you're talking futuristic, it's being invested into the future
Yes,
for them.
definitely.
Is there a pay scheme for athletes that compete in the event? Like, first, second, and third get $5,000, $3,000, $2,000?
It's something that we one would have loved to hear, but because it's a junior games, we do not have that sort of price structure for athletes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You don't want to. I know in recent times we still have to be cautious with that of ensuring eligibility and so forth. So there is no sort of pay structure still yet for at the junior level games.
So all in all, Kwame, it's safe to say that come 2024, the Easter weekend, Grenada is going to have an excellent, if not perfect, character games.
We could say so. I'm confident based on the level of discussions that we've been having, the level of preparation that we put in place, that we would be able to execute that games, and the sort of spirit that you have coming out of just the technical team, the IT and technical guys, is something that we're certainly looking forward to. And what's the good thing about it is that the meets of 2024, the national champs and the relay meet and so forth, would be used as the gauge towards our preparation for the games, and because of the level of technology that these guys want to have for the games, we have to ensure that we lock it down early and that they're able to meet the expectations of our parent body.
What must happen at the character games so that when you're doing the post-mortem of it, you can say, yes, the games were successful? What are some of the things that you would like to see happen to safely say that it was successful?
It would start from the airport. The athlete's entry, smoother transition to the buses, and that bus transmitting to the airport. I think he's ACP Prince, if my memory serves me right with the name, is charged with the task for transportation. And Nzinga, charged with the task of the liaison officers that would assist in ensuring that transmitting from the airport, from the plane to immigration, to transport, easy transition to the hotels. When they get to the hotels, that ease of registering, of getting to their rooms and so forth. And on the accreditation side of things, ensuring that there's no backlog in terms of accrediting the athletes for the games, and there is no hassle, there's no worry in terms of that happening, and everybody that have to get accreditations, it's done flawlessly. In terms of moving to the stadium, getting to the stadium for the games, the ease, the cooperation that we would receive from the police in terms of getting the athletes to the stadium. Games execution in terms of the events running off on time, events being completed, the whole sort of presentation, all of these things that would come with that aspect of things. For the spectators, it's from the time of purchasing their ticket, the ease of purchasing their ticket, the ease of getting into the stadium, finding seats, and the volunteers assisting them in doing so, is all part of that, what we would have to look at in terms of whether or not we really and truly had a successful event. And if we use the last character games as a gauge, if we are able to execute that way and improve on it, we certainly would have a great games.
A quick question: with the athletes, the visiting athletes, will they be requesting training facilities and so forth?
Yes, oftentimes what you find happening is that they would want to train on the surface, the actual surface that they will compete on. So teams that will arrive 2-3 days before, they will be training at the stadium based on a set schedule.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, you heard it there as Grenada prepares to host the Carifta Games 2024, coinciding nicely with our 50th anniversary of independence. And we know that we're going to have a big shebang for that. So I have been speaking with a sporting enthusiast. He is the public relations officer also for the Grenada Athletics Association, and he wears so many different hats in the sporting fraternity, you know. And I want to thank you for listening and viewing and participating in the program this evening. This has been another presentation of Beyond the Headlines. I'm Gordon Joseph, thanking you for joining us. Peace out.